Hey everyone, welcome back to Teens for Business podcast. I'm your host, Ivan.
I'm Jack.
I'm Colin.
And I'm Jackie.
So, today in this episode, we'll be discussing the various realities, including virtual reality, augmented reality, and mixed reality, and also the Apple Vision Pro. So, Apple has recently introduced its latest invention, the Apple innovation, I would say, the Apple Vision Pro, and it has seen over 200,000 units sold, and projections indicate that within the next 2 years, sales could even reach 1.48 million. And the Apple Vision Pro is priced at a premium price point at $3,500. And it is fueled by Apple's M2 chip, which is famous for its use in its laptops and iPads, and is technically accessible to anyone. And prominent influencers on various social media platforms such as Marquise Brownlee and Kai Cenat have showcased the device on YouTube and Twitch, and it has sparked significant interest despite its premium price point. And actually, the Apple Vision Pro isn't augmented reality, but actually mixed reality. As well, by definition of mixed reality, it's followed. Apple Vision Pro uses cameras. It's 6.5 megapixel color cameras located within the headset to alter reality. So that's why it's called mixed reality. So question to everyone: would you buy the Apple Vision Pro currently, and why or why not?
Me personally, I'm not like super into this. I feel like the only reason why I would get it is because like it seems very cool and like it's obviously like trending. And just like that point of like, oh, this is something new that's interesting, but like it's also priced at a pretty high point. So I feel like me personally, I wouldn't get it, but like I know many people probably would just because it's a cool new thing that's coming out and also just something that's like a very big like step in technology and that we see it all around or like online now.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's not really my thing right now, and I can't really see how it could be of use of me for it to be like more like effective. Or I mean, I could get it just to have fun. I might be peer pressure to get it. Uh, that's obviously things that could happen. But if I were to like in my situation right now, like I I don't for me, I don't think I would be like better off with like VR like right now, especially with this higher price point. So that's definitely something to consider.
I actually think it's really cool. I think like I saw a clip of like watching NBA games on it was just like you can zoom in and stuff. Yeah, multiple screens, you got multiple games going on at the same time. But like with the price, I think starting at like 3,500 or something, it's just like it's just kind of crazy. That's a crazy price point for like any piece of technology. And for us like high school students, like it's like right now, we're probably not gonna buy something like that just for to use ourselves. So I think it's super cool, but like for most people, I guess it isn't really practical. So yeah, I mean, I personally wouldn't buy it, but I think it's really cool.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Like, especially for people of the same demographic like us, like high schoolers, we can't really take out $3,500 on some piece of like gimmick. Despite how cool it is, it's still a very hefty price point. Um, and as because it's Apple, so it kind of follows the Apple ecosystem and how successful the Apple ecosystem is. So, do you think that Apple Vision Pro currently is or will be a successful product like the other various products Apple produces, such as the iPhone or iPad, and why or why not?
It's a fun question. So personally, I'm a big fan of the Apple ecosystem, but I think at the same time, like when you talk about like the Apple ecosystem, most of the products are things that like we would mostly use on like an everyday basis, right? Like you think the phone, the like the computers, your iPads, like AirPods, headphones, etc. Those are all like things I would say like you use pretty commonly, especially like maybe if you're a student, like taking notes on your iPad and then obviously using your computer for other things. But I think for this, like for it to be something that's part of like the staple Apple ecosystem that like people really like, try to get, I think one, the price point is just too high. Like no one's really out here buying like a $3,500 like thing for their Apple ecosystem or like, like that's not the price of AirPods, that's not the price of like most computers. So like one, the price point, but also two, it's just like not something we use every day. Like it's not something that has applications. Like it's fun, it's cool, it's trendy, I guess, but it's not something you would like, break out in the middle of class and be like, yeah, let me use this right now. So I think like definitely I could see it becoming popular, but I think it would be like popular for a different reason than some of the other products.
I can see the potential for the Apple Vision Pro to be potentially a very popular and very successful product in the future. Like I already can like I'm already gonna commend that the fact that Apple was like pretty much the first like big company to release a product like this and to enter the virtual reality market and provide a product that is like available to everyone and everyone can test it out, virtual reality, and it's a pretty like open source. But right, obviously, right now it's like super overpriced, and that means it's not that accessible as what people want. So due to the price being so expensive and the fact that like we can't like really use it too much in our like everyday lives as compared to like a phone or a computer, I don't think it is the quite the successful product that Apple has envisioned it yet. But obviously, this can change in the future. Technology trends, I mean, technology changes really quickly. Like within two years, AI became from like something that was like pretty small into this big thing that everyone is using. And then I feel like VR could be something really similar over the next 2 or 3 years, but we'll have to really watch this trajectory carefully play out.
Yeah, I agree. I just think that it's never going to get to the level of something like the iPad or iPhone in particular. I think just because, like with the headset, you like it's like a piece of technology like you're putting on your face, on your head, and it's like kind of heavy. You're not gonna want to do that like super consistently. Maybe you sit down like every night and you use it for a while, but you're not gonna like in the morning just put it on and use it, and then in the afternoon put it on, use it, and then like use it multiple times a day. So I just think like with the iPhone and iPad, it has like you can just like take it out and use it whenever. I know like the Vision Pro is like integrated into this Apple like ecosystem. It's pretty seamless, like the way that you can interact with your apps and things like that. But I don't know, it's when you think about it, it's another headset. Like Meta, I know the Oculus, they're already making these like headsets. So like I know the Vision Pro is probably more advanced, but it's simply like if you think about it, it's just another headset. So I don't think it's really gonna get to the level of the iPad or the iPhone.
Yeah, definitely. I think, especially with the pro tagline like the MacBook Pro, AirPods Pro, Mac Pro is like that kind of, you know, it's kind of like the Apple thing. If you want to price something at a very premium price, well then you slap a pro at the end of it. And I think my personal view is that the Apple Vision Pro is sold at this large quantity because the name is the Apple Vision Pro. Like if some other company came out with this product, I don't think it'll be generating the same amount of hype. So I definitely do agree that currently definitely not a successful product, and the future it could come with a lot if it does have improvements, especially with the weight, like Kaiwan mentioned, then it could become a successful product. But I just don't see that product being very successful right now. Um, so yeah, Apple Vision Pro is basically like one of the first few kind of headsets breaking into that mixed reality market here. So how does the introduction of the Apple Vision Pro kind of shift the market for mixed reality devices?
I think because Apple, like you said, is like one of the biggest companies, and like because it has so much power to like generate this like trendiness and like, oh, I want to get that just because it's Apple, like this like um sense that like, oh, whatever's coming out, I want to get it. I think because like they are such a big thing and like this product they have like really like changes everything, like changes like the general consumer mindset. I think it opens up the door for other companies to make their own versions of it. So essentially what I'm trying to say is that like if some other company that we don't really know as well, like they release their version of it, the general like consumer might just be like, oh, like it's cool, but it's not something I really want to get. But then because Apple was the one that released it first, well, released this big one first, and that like really creates a sense of like, oh wow, that's so cool for a lot of people. And then once that like they generate this hype within it, then other companies I think will also want to jump on the trend. But I definitely am very much interested to see like where it goes. Like I personally don't think I'll be getting it, at least within like the foreseeable future, but I am interested in seeing like how popular it does end up becoming and like what companies come out with their version of it. And if there's any companies who like we not like might not know about it right now, but like they come onto the scene and become as popular.
Yeah, I agree, and I can tie this into like a first mover, like second mover type thing that is applicable is what we see in the business world and also in economics and game theory as well. And usually, actually, when I've studied game theory, I've went between businesses, especially first mover and second mover. I've actually noticed that the first mover often gets like kind of like trapped after like their product releases, even though it could be like successful, those other big names eventually do catch on. And I can and it this is like kind of off topic, but also like in the AI world, we kind of see this happening. Like oh, like don't get me wrong, OpenAI is still making great strides and is revolutionizing AI. But those big companies like Microsoft and Microsoft, that's like the main company, but like they're kind of like catching on a little bit more and they're developing their AI to be like more powerful, have more capabilities. And that is like causing a little bit of doubt towards what would happen to OpenAI in the future. And I feel like this could also like translate into the VR world with Apple. Like they were pretty much, I think, a first mover by developing the Apple Vision Pro. But then obviously now Microsoft released their product. The Oculus is continuing to being worked on, and there's other big players that are going to enter this market soon as well. So I think definitely Apple being one of the first movers into this market, this new VR market with their Apple Vision Pro will definitely shift the market to like a potentially like new sector or even like I think like a new dimension that hasn't been reached yet.
Yeah, I agree. I think especially for people who aren't like super into like technology and stuff, I think just because of the still with like the Apple name, I think it's just gonna make I guess in general, it's just gonna make the market a lot bigger, especially for something as new as like this Vision Pro. Like, yeah, I think even now, like a lot of people don't really know what like everything that it can do just because it's so new. I know Apple's still like adding a lot of stuff to it. So yeah, I think they can definitely attract like a broader audience and increase their customer base way past like the usual people like who are into like new technology like diehard technology fans. So they're definitely going to just broaden the entire market for mixed reality devices.
Yeah, I would say I definitely agree with Jack's point because Apple is kind of like that first mover, and I definitely can see Apple is one of the biggest company in the world, but I would definitely see a lot of competitors rising up by Apple taking this move, and the Google Lens or whatever, Google Vision. Well, I don't forgot, but like there was like a Google headset or glasses that came out like couple like pretty long time ago, but it kind of flopped. And like even large companies like Google can release technology that fails dramatically. So Apple could also follow that trend as more competitors rise up, or as people start seeing like, oh, okay, this is kind of useless, So and so that kind of moves into my point, my other question, which is since at the Apple Vision Pro is definitely mixed reality, so what are the potential industrial uses for mixed reality, or even cases such as virtual reality or augmented reality?
Yeah, there's definitely like a lot of applications. And just like one quick thing, I think like for me, what I immediately think of is like uses in education. Like first of all, like learning with technology. Like you know how there's always like, like the older generations are like a little bit like less like as good as technology as like younger generations. So one, I feel like using it in like education, especially with like younger students, like you just kind of see like that generational like people getting better with tech, if that makes sense. But also like within education, the uses, there's just so many. Like for example, like sometimes it's like difficult to visualize some things, or for example, like if you're talking about like history, or if you're talking about like social studies, like obviously you can't be physically in another place while you're in school. But I feel like that is definitely one use where you can like visualize it with like this new technology. And then also there's like other applications. It's not just like, oh, let me take you to a different space. Like for example, if we're thinking about um like math, right? Or like 3D integrals or like triple integrals, like vectors, et cetera, et cetera. You can like visualize that very well with something like this. And I just feel like there's so much like learning potential with it, and like you can use it as a tool for something else. And then also I think like with education, it's the sense of like you don't need to like give everyone their own sets. You know how like there's like like classroom like sets for like I don't know like computers or like whatever materials there are. So I feel like that could definitely be a good application of it.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree, and I'm gonna go off of Jackie's point about like a lot of the 3D and especially the 3D math, and and I'm gonna t tap into a little bit of like the architecture and engineering applications of VR and AR and MR, and like I feel like the VR can what VR can do is that it can interact with those like 3D models and enable like even like enables like collaboration through VR, which means that multiple workers can like go into like a VR session and just like experiment with like different like 3D models or like designing things in general. So like I know one key example of that is Flipscapes is like a company that like kind of like design some like 3D models of like furniture, and what basically it was gonna able to do is it was gonna connect some of its clients to potentially seeing their future house or seeing their future workplace, and they were allowed to experiment with what types of like furniture or like what types of like different even models of furniture that they wanted to see make their house come to life. So I think this is definitely like 3D modeling and in architecture and engineering. This I think VR can be definitely a very applicable element. And also in healthcare, we can definitely see just like that whole scope of virtual reality, AR or mixed reality in healthcare, because like well, VR can create a lot of like simulations to of like I guess the most common example that comes to mind is surgical procedures, and due to that, like, and now I think healthcare in the future is going to a more patient-centered trajectory, which means that the treatments are going to be more patient-centered. I don't know exactly if this is the case. Ivan can feel free to correct me here, but basically those like VR simulations to like simulate like pain and like treatment can be very helpful to the healthcare world in the future, and it will definitely be able to lead us to designing new diseases. I mean designing treatments for diseases and just treatments for like pain or anything in general for the future.
Yeah, just to add on to that point about like healthcare, I think that's a huge one just because like Jack mentioned already, like surgery, but then with AR and mixed reality as well, I think you're gonna have like you you're gonna be able to have like so much information available on these screens, like your patient information or like different medical like diagrams and images like readily available that like sometimes as a doctor, you should be remembering stuff, but like this is going to be so much more helpful if this can get like integrated into your healthcare, like into what healthcare is thought of, and it's just gonna I think it's gonna transform the whole industry. And I think like it's also used for real estate as well. I know like house tours on like Redfin or Zillow. I know you can already like click in and take like virtual tours. So I guess if you're gonna like keep going through that and just like continue expanding on that, like making it easier to see what these houses are like without having to actually take a tour. Yeah, this is a couple ideas, but yeah, I think healthcare and real estate are both huge.
Yeah, definitely. I would definitely want to, add on to that healthcare bandwagon we kind of have here. But so basically, yeah, I think I personally know surgeons who are trying to use the Apple Vision Pro and similar technologies in their surgeries because of simply how feasible how this technology could help them, have the patient diagrams. Like it would be extremely helpful to, like not shift your entire body to look at a screen when you're in the middle of doing surgery, and it will be definitely much easier if you have that information like literally a few degree turn of your head. And and a lot of surgeries, especially vascular surgery, they use angiograms. And personally, when seeing one, they have that x-ray, and the x-ray is displayed on TV on one side of the bed, so the surgeons are literally moving their hands with their heads turning like this. So it's definitely pretty uncomfortable, I would say. So even with this kind of technologies, especially doing minimally invasive surgeries, which is kind of the trend nowadays, because it has a very um, reduced negative side effects and kind of feedback to that surgery afterwards. um, and if with like angiograms and stuff, it would be very useful to display this kind of information on kind of mixed reality headsets, and there's no need to turn your head a full 90 degrees when your hand is out of your view. So definitely a lot of uses for MR in the healthcare field. And there's a lot of clips on social media showing the Tesla Cybertruck, and then the driver wearing the Apple Vision headset while driving that Cybertruck, and also like on the sidewalks, people wearing those on the subway. So definitely a lot of ethical considerations should be are seen throughout the world, especially on social media. So what are some of these ethical considerations that should be taken into account when developing products and marketing products such as the Apple Vision Pro?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest ones is privacy, and like I think there's kind of like some controversy around that. I mean, of course there will be, but there's also like the consumer thing of like some people are very, very like big into like how their privacy is, or like what data is being collected about them, and then others are like, well, whatever, like I don't really care. So I think like there's like that aspect of like how much data is being collected and what is done with that data, because even for the people who don't really like particularly care, like privacy and like data use is still important. That's like, for example, like you go onto all these websites, and like that's why there's so much controversy around certain things. Like there's a lot of like laws around this, and just a lot of controversy as a whole that has been like actually like pretty high up in terms of like how far the legal system goes. And so I think like privacy concerns is definitely a really big thing for this, especially because the technology that is being used here, it's not just like, oh, like a password or two that could go missing. Like there's so much that is being used about the person, especially like the way like they use this technology, but there's so much data to be collected and so much to be like learned from in a sense. And so I think that definitely is a really, really big consideration that needs to be taken into account. And I'm sure like that's also why like there's some people right now who are like, oh, like I don't want to use this one thing because it steals my data. Or like like that might be like a little bit more extreme, but there definitely are people who are on that side. And I feel like something that's so like, I guess, technologically advanced compared to just like a phone, I feel like there's going to be a lot of pushback on that, of like what exactly is Apple learning from me, and like what exactly is Apple like doing with this data. I think that is a really big consideration for a lot of people.
I mean, not just that. Like, I know Apple's like pretty reliable like companies. Like, I have a Mac and I have never been hacked into like before. But also that also comes with being safe on the internet. But also, there's always a risk of hacking when it comes to VR. Like, you never know. Like, maybe some really smart hacker can like hack into your VR headset and steal all your data and do a lot of bad things with it. So like, that is obviously another big ethical concern that comes with VR. That's definitely something that I think will need to be addressed in the very near future when considering the trajectory of where the VR market is going to go, where AR or MR is going to go as a whole. So that is obviously one additional like I guess like point that I want to make about privacy. And then another social implication that I think could help for like VR is during the driving, because I feel like especially with like VR, and I think VR can be mixed into like different like systems to like allow like some the system of like real just like enhance the system of like real-time navigation, which also like comes with like a lot of like speed and hazard alerts with, and that also helps like because like it doesn't require for drivers to like look away from the road. But then there's also like a little bit of a concern about that, because what if there's like too many alerts that come at once and that distracts the driver, and what if they crash because of that? Like there's obviously going to be some concerns about that in the future. So I think it could be a useful tool in driving, but definitely those concerns about being having like a ton of alerts at once and just being overwhelmed, that is definitely a concern that will need to be monitored when in terms of like developing VR for driving.
Yeah, I agree. I think that like in terms of privacy, I think like that those concerns are already tied in with like the other Apple devices. Like there's been big debates about like the App Store of like the different apps. Like I know Apple like on your phone they incorporated like ask apps to like stop tracking or something like that, like to not use your data. I think that's a huge thing for the Vision Pro too. Whenever you're using stuff, like you're gonna be with that Vision Pro, you're gonna be able to use like so many apps at the same time. And yeah, like privacy is definitely a major concern. Just for everyone. I know some people don't care about it much, like Jackie mentioned, but it's still like inherently like people want to people but don't really want their data to be like on the internet for sale. So I guess just considering like the Vision Pro tied in with like everything else that Apple makes, I think overall like um it should be a main concern, but like I think Apple's been doing a fine job with this. So I'm not worried that much.
Uh, um, I would actually want to disagree with Kaiwan because I would say Apple does a lot of following what the government tells it to do in order to keep its place in the global marketplace. But I would say adding on to that privacy issue, if someone hacks into your phone or laptop, for example, the most they can see is from your webcam or from the phone's cameras. But if they do hack into the Apple Vision Pro headset, they can literally see whatever you're seeing, right? You in your room staring to a wall or walking around the street, like they can literally see what you are seeing. So that just adds another sense of danger on kind of privacy. Like before it's like kind of limited, now they literally see what you are seeing, and that is definitely a very no topic. And I think definitely a lot of companies should consider the solutions to that privacy issue. And Jack mentioned driving, and I would say definitely agree with all the kind of overstimulants of like alerts and stuff. But I will also say, like, what if the Apple headset freezes up because it is MR, so all the data is coming through the uh, cameras in the front. So what if it just freezes up? Everything freezes. It's not augmented reality. So you literally everything for you is frozen. So that will be definitely a hazard when you're driving in a moving vehicle, and if you're like driving that vehicle. So definitely a lot of ethical things to think about here. But I also do want to add a new point, which is advertisements. And you're already like going through the internet, you can see advertisements everywhere. But what if Apple finds a way to add, well, like any type of MR device actually finds a way to add advertisements into literally your field of view. So that is definitely going to be unpleasant. We already see enough ads, but it's just a new avenue for advertisers to incorporate more advertisements into our lives. So yeah, that's also definitely one of the important ethical issues that I have with these technologies. So we had a lot of things to say about the Apple Vision's headsets, cons, especially in the pricing. So what are some other things that Apple should improve upon or even add to that Vision Pro headset?
So well, first off, I think I'm not really like too familiar with the technology and like what there currently is, but just a really quick thought that I was thinking when Ivan was speaking was there's also this aspect of like over reliance on technology. And like yes, like you can argue like phone, computers, etc. Like I'm personally on that a lot, whether it is like for fun, but also like for school, like work, whatever. But like once because like the Apple Vision Pro is so much like so integrated or has the potential to be like so integrated with our life, like literally everything we see, this device also can see it. There's like that aspect of like over reliance. And like for example, like one really simple thing is like if you're always using a GPS to go somewhere, like you kind of just like don't use your brain as much and like you're not like as familiar with the roads as you could be. It's like one very like simple example, right? But then once you like apply that same like logic to the Apple Vision Pro, like you start just using technology as a crutch and like you don't really need to like, I don't know, use your brain functions for other things as much. And so there's definitely that aspect of like over reliance, which goes back to the previous question. This is just like what I was thinking before. Um, and like that's still like this ethics aspect of it. Like, is it ethical for Apple to release something that like impacts society is so big as a whole and like the over reliance of technology? And so I definitely think that like that's something to consider, especially with like younger students or like, kids in general who like don't really have I don't know, I guess like as much critical thinking skills as like adults with a fully developed brain would have. And so I definitely think that's something, and that's probably also something they should be keeping in mind when thinking about like how they can improve the product. Because like when we think improving a product, it's not just like, oh, how do we make this like more marketable? Like how do we get more people to buy it? But it's also about like how do we make a device more safe, more like good for the consumer as well? Because like it's such a big product, and like there's also like aspects of society that they have to consider.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And actually, my suggestion for improvement actually ties into exactly what Jackie has explained. And I also don't know too much about the Apple Vision Pro and other like I guess like I guess like competitor products, but I think the one I was looking at is screen time limits because it's really easy to get as Jackie said, it's really easy to get like so immersed in just into like the VR experience that you basically lose track of time. And as a result, that obviously like takes a lot of time, especially if you're using VR in a more fun or like a gaming aspect. Like obviously like time time like flies when you're having fun. That's a phrase that everyone probably have has heard before, and especially if you're having fun on VR or using VR for a fun thing. And if the VR you can't really see the time off the VR, you're gonna lose like a lot of like time that maybe you allocate like 1 hour, but then you use VR for like 3 hours and you completely forgot about that. And that's obviously a big concern when it comes to like using like VR or just anything in that realm. So I think that screen time limits would be super beneficial. And also just to correspond with that a little bit, I think this could be for any Apple product in general. Like there's a lot of people have a lot of hours of screen time that they use their products, whether it's for fun or gaming, or it's for just doing homework or just being just productive in general. But I think there needs to be reminders to take breaks because we all have to touch grass sometimes. So we all have to go outside, explore more, and I feel like so those are definitely gonna be some things that I think should be considered to be added is in VR and just not just Apple Vision Pro, but just anything in the VR, AR, and MR in general.
Yeah, I agree with that. But with Jackie already covering kind of like the area of like making it more safe for users and more reliable, I guess transitioning to another area. I think one place where people will find a lot of use for this Vision Pro, I guess, is like plane rides. I think like where the plane rides are so like especially like if you're just cramped in these like small planes and it's just gonna be super uncomfortable for like that amount of time. So with the Vision Pro, I hope like Apple can make it more like a more comfortable and like lightweight design because I know right now it's pretty heavy. So I don't know, just something that makes it easier for people to I guess like to minimize discomfort, especially if you are wearing it a long time because you don't know how much time has really gone by. I guess you have like a clock, but it's hard to pay attention to how much time has truly gone by when you're wearing it. So making it more comfortable. Um, yeah, I guess that's the main thing.
Yeah, I definitely would agree because with Kaiwood's point, because currently like if I did have like the Apple Vision Pro headset with me, I would use it in cases where like my laptop isn't available, but I would like to do something productive, right? Which usually doesn't happen, but I would like to have the thought of doing something productive. So like let's say plane rides, definitely like those are the worst places to be when you're trying to be productive because how cramped everything is, and it really isn't feasible to whip out a laptop and start doing something. Um and so I would definitely like Kaiwan said, want Apple to do something about the discomfort, because I have seen online reviews saying how they need like they wear for like I think 3 hours maximum, and they need to take a break because it just gets too heavy. Because I think it's like what 5-6 pounds. So it's like at first it might not feel like anything, but after a couple hours of use, definitely it'll feel like something. So I definitely agree on with Kyle with that point. And so, we talked about the Apple Vision Pro, but how about any other competitors that may compete with Apple Vision Pro? So, do you guys see any current competitors or even future competitors who can compete on, certain aspects of the Apple Vision Pro?
Yeah, I think like as of right now, I think we touched upon this a little bit before in this episode, but there have like in terms of, like the Vision Pro, like this isn't the first like headset that has come out, but I think it is one of like the more successful ones that like or has potential, right? And I think in terms of, like competition, like Apple, a lot of the times with Apple, and like I know it does get criticism sometimes, is that like their actual products are good, obviously, but like it's not like good to the point like to get as popular as it is. Like the Apple brand is incredibly strong. Like I think that's pretty hard to argue against. So I think they just like have this upper hand on like whatever technology they decide to release. And so definitely I think like they have that like advantage because their branding is so strong and everyone is already so hooked onto this Apple ecosystem like vibe. And so I definitely think that that is something competitors can find it like very hard to compete against. However, like because like at the end of the day, like it still is a product. Like I think if there was a cheaper version that came out, or like if there's a cheaper and better like I guess like more features or like better features than what Apple currently has, I think competitors would be able to go off of it. But at the same time, it's still very hard to compete against like a society's like values of like, whoa, I have something from Apple. Like that's hard to like take away from if you're not Apple. So I definitely think that like yes, there may be competitors, but Apple just has this advantage because its branding is so like ingrained into us. It's like the same thing with like Apple versus Android like phones. Like yes, like it's probably arguable like okay, just for reference, I'm a very big like Apple fan, but like for reference, I feel like Android phones are probably very much like fine and like I don't know, they have a lot of great features, but like personally, I just would not change because I feel like I'm so adjusted to like what Apple is doing. And like I'm sure that's the same thing with a bunch of like other Apple fans as well. So like they just automatically, in a sense, like win on that. Um, and then also with like this Apple Vision Pro, I feel like we're talking about it because like we kind of like know about it, but I feel like a lot of people, even if they are like Apple fans, are like very much into like iPads or like whatever else Apple has, like they might not even know about the Apple Vision Pro because it's just not like it's not like a piece of technology that most people have. Like most people have a phone, most people have a computer, but like a headset like this is not something that most people would have. And so I definitely think that like at first they're going to start off with a more niche consumer market. And so that definitely also again factors into like who can and who is a competitor.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I haven't actually I don't follow the VR like market too much or know too much about any like alternative products other than Apple Vision Pro. I know that Meta has their Quest 3 and I know I think Qualcomm or is like Samsung is developing some like Snapdragon or something like that. But other than that, like I know a lot of Apple fans who also don't even know about the Apple Vision Pro. Like there's a lot of people around the world who don't even know that about like virtual reality and like any products in virtual reality in general. So I think like right now Apple may have a lead, but it's very hard to say. Just like I've said this with like a lot of technology things, a lot of AI, but it's really hard to predict what could happen with AI in the future, with VR in the future, especially because like right now there's not a really big everyday use to it, and then I could potentially see like I guess like a company or some sort of product revolutionizing this in the future. It is possible, and I can't rule this possibility out. And I think it is possible that a company could like could develop a product, a big company could develop a product that could overtake Apple's like Vision Pro in the future. Like the one thing I think of right now is like what if AI and VR just like combined with each other and like made like a really big product. Like the first company that comes to mind when doing that is Nvidia. So like obviously we don't it's really hard to predict what's going to happen in the future. Apple has a I think Apple has like a lead in with their Apple Vision Pro right now, and I don't know too much about the other alternative products, and this is pretty much what I have to say about the competition with Apple right now.
Yeah, there's definitely competitors out there, but I think Apple definitely has the most like advanced products. Even though like the price point is definitely a lot higher than their competitors. But because of the name like Apple, I don't think that it really matters that they have that like much higher price point because people are going to be willing to pay for the Apple Vision Pro compared to like Meta's Quest, like Quest 3. I think that's their kind of competition per se. It's like only $500 compared to the Vision Pro at 3,500, but with like what each one is able to do, you could argue like the Vision Pro is like more worth it in terms of if you really want like a device that can actually accomplish like multiple things instead of just like mainly with the Quest, I guess you're using that for VR, like playing for gaming or something like that. So I do think there are like competitive, like I wouldn't say they're pure like competitors like really competing with Apple, just because Apple is like so ahead of the game in terms of technology. But there are some like similar products out there for sure.
Yeah, I would say definitely agree with all the points presented here because Meta did come out with its Quest 3 before Apple Visions. Apple's Vision Pro headset, and my social media feed would be constantly people using the Meta Quest 3 because like it was just MR and people didn't really see it before, like playing video games, watching YouTube when they're cooking. That was the biggest thing. So that was kind of big through, and then Apple Vision came out, and then nobody posts about the Quest 3 anymore. So I think it was definitely, you can't really, especially for startups who are looking into the MR field, you can't really compete with Apple based on purely its brand strength because especially with the Apple ecosystem, like even if Apple does have a worse product which does not have as many features, the simple idea that it can connect to your laptop and that can beat your entire product. So I definitely think the barrier to entry is very high into this field simply because Apple did it. And I would say for startups who are looking into developing something for like as something similar using MR for like kind of like industrial uses, I would say definitely be cautious because Google Glasses, they obviously failed using AR. And it's Google. They have a lot of money. They have a lot of R&D, and they still failed. So I think definitely the more focus on MR is definitely entertainment, and like I've seen videos of people being on a toilet and watching a movie using the Apple Vision Pro, and I think that's pretty funny. But I think that's also what the general public wants using MR, not necessarily like doing their jobs, but like at home, like when you're like not supposed to be sitting down on your laptop, you can be wearing this and still enjoy some form of content. Like when you're doing the dishes, you can watch YouTube on the side. When you're on the toilet, you can also watch YouTube on the side, So like I think that's like the general perception. And I on that point, I can see the Meta Quest 3 being like a similar point. Like you can do it with both headsets. It's just basically no difference. It's just that the Apple Vision Pro kind of is able to connect with the Apple ecosystem, so it's better kind of thing. So if someone wants to make an MR platform that is could be as successful as a Vision Pro, they need to develop their own system of the Apple ecosystem. So I would say Microsoft probably has the biggest chance of competing with Apple, but currently, like even if Apple has, as I said before, even if Apple has like the worst product in the world, this the words Apple and Pro and Apple ecosystem can top your entire product. So that's just purely my opinion. And I think that is all for our podcast episode for today. And thank you guys for tuning in, and make sure to tune in our next episode, our Teens for Business podcast.